Hello, I'm Dibanjan Chakravarti, Head of English Interface Program of the British Council in India, and I'm in conversation with Sue Hackett. Welcome, Sue, and thank you for joining us in this conversation.
My pleasure.
Will you tell us a little bit about yourself, Sue, your role in IATEFL and everything else that you do?
IATEFL is an organisation of English language teaching practitioners. We're not an academic research body, we're a network of expert, interested ELT practitioners internationally. And TECIG is the special interest group that looks at English language testing, evaluation and assessment. TECIG, I'm the current coordinator. We have a committee of 5 or 6 people, I think, now, and everybody has particular duties. The coordinator obviously has the sort of overview, and we're particularly interested in terms of our vision to sort of promote assessment literacy internationally amongst ELT practitioners. I'm really noticed at the conference that the phrase assessment literacy has come up again and again, which is very encouraging.
Yeah. So, what do you think is the value of a conference like this in the overall scheme of things?
I have been amazed at not least the number of people here, but even putting that to one side, the amount of dialogue and questions and discussion that's been going on here. People who have just been coming up to me and asking me questions about things that they've heard said or they heard me say in the plenary, whatever. I mean, there's an enormous amount of engagement and interest and desire to professionally improve and develop, and that's been really quite really made a great impression on me.
The theme of this conference obviously is assessment and evaluation. How does that chime with your own professional interests? If you could.
Very closely, and indeed my talk was on the need to build assessment frameworks within an organisation, and I'd just like to repeat how important that is, that assessment should come, the framework should be developed internally, and that it should be part of a curriculum design, curriculum renewal process. Assessment shouldn't be something that's a tag on or dropped from a height by external experts in their ivory tower. It has to come from the context for which it is designed to be used.
So what do you think should be the main principles behind underlying developing assessment framework for teacher education? There's a lot of discussion in this country at the moment about improving the quality of teacher education and evaluating and assessing the quality of teacher education.
Absolutely. I think the panel discussion this morning on continuous professional development was very pertinent, and indeed to some extent would address that question. You want to be able to evaluate teacher performance, and you want to be able to evaluate it so that you can tell teachers where they are in terms of their professional pathway. That's really important. So it's a kind of formative assessment as opposed to a summative one. And it ties in with development rather than formal training as such. Do you take my point? Alan Mackenzie mentioned this in the previous panel, and indeed I think it's come up in other contexts as well. To use a teacher profiling grid. The British Council have one that they have developed, Equals, which is an international quality assurance body that works in many cases in collaboration with the British Council, have also just developed a teacher development framework. And that's, I think, that will be very useful and is designed to give teachers the opportunity to self-evaluate and then direct them in terms of how their how they can map their professional development going forward.
So one of the problems that we have, one of the challenges rather, we have faced in India is when we go into large-scale teacher education programs or teacher training programs, the model of choice for most state sector partners that we have seem to be the large-scale cascade training method. The biggest problem we have faced there is how do we assess the learning outcomes in a cascade training program? How do we know what's happening at the bottom of the cascade?
Yes, which is really where it matters, isn't it?
Absolutely. That's
at the chalk phase.
Yeah, it's the chalk phase.
Yes, quite. And I do think that is quite a challenge. It's difficult to do. And I would suggest it shouldn't be on the basis of student results.
Right.
You might incorporate that as a factor, but that shouldn't be the primary factor when you're evaluating the impact of the project. It has to be, I would say, sort of qualitative data collected from teachers, from the organisation, maybe from of course some learners as well, maybe other stakeholders, which you can sort of correlate to see what the impact is. Of course, the best way of, and probably the most expensive way of actually seeing the impact is to go and see it.
Yeah.
And you know, and to do that over over a staggered time frame, but that can be very difficult, if not impossible, practically to do.
So one of the things that I've kind of latched onto in the last 2 days of the conference is there's a slight healthy tension, I would say, between the very rigorous models of assessment and evaluation and what I would say a very humanistic view of education, where it's about not about specific skills, but about it's about life and, you know, about enjoyment, about other things, and you know, I mean the broad humanistic argument. What is your take on that?
I think we mustn't forget, it's very easy to forget, particularly when you're looking at a national context, that this is all about the learner. This all starts with the learner. It doesn't start with the teacher, it doesn't start with national education bodies of any sort. The starting point is the learner, and this is all about trying to promote, foster, sustain effective learning through putting good systems and procedures in place which are contextually appropriate, as in manageable and practical, and which are secondly fit for purpose. I think sometimes systems almost generate more systems and become an end in themselves, and bureaucracy sort of takes over. And that really is a very counterproductive symptom that one needs to be very mindful of. Engagement, these kind of very difficult things to quantify and to define, but engagement, motivation, interest, ownership of all the sort of change and development that's going on will be the bedrock of how successful it is.
So I was also wondering, what do you think is the role of technology in enhancing evaluation and testing models?
Yes, I'm not very good on technology, I have to say, but I can see I can see in a large-scale project like this, and particularly where cost is obviously going to be a massive issue, technology is going to play a vital role. I went to a very interesting workshop just there with Claire Woodward, talking about the mobile, the sort of M-learning approach they've been taking in Bangladesh, and that's very, very interesting, very cost effective, and, you know, ratio to cost, high impact.
Right. Thank you so much for talking to us, Sue. We were speaking to Sue Hackett from IATEFL, and she's also she's the project manager of Quality Assurance of English Language Training and Services, the National Qualifications Authority of Ireland. Thank you, Sue, for your time and for speaking to us.
Thank you.
Thank you.